Flight MH370, the greatest aviation mystery.
The day the world stopped searching for answers. On March 8, 2014, Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370, a Boeing 777-200 carrying 239 passengers and crew, vanished without a trace while flying from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing. What was supposed to be a routine overnight journey became one of the most baffling aviation mysteries in history, as minutes turned into hours, and hours into days. An eerie silence shrouded the case. No distress signals, no emergency calls, just a plane that seemingly disappeared from the sky. The world watched in disbelief as news outlets scrambled to piece together information. Governments mobilized their resources. Families waited in agony, clinging to the hope that their loved ones were alive somewhere. But as time passed, the mystery only deepened. The aircraft's transponders were deliberately turned off, its flight path altered in a manner suggesting human intervention, and its last known location was somewhere in the vast and unforgiving Indian Ocean. MH370's disappearance sparked an international search effort that spanned years and cost hundreds of millions of dollars. Theories ranging from mechanical failure to sophisticated hijacking, from pilot suicide to government conspiracies, flooded the media and public discourse. Clues emerged, debris washing up on distant shores, fragments of information extracted from radar and satellite data, but they only raised more questions than they answered. What happened to Flight MH370? Was it a catastrophic accident, or was it something far more sinister? Could authorities have done more, or was this a tragedy wrapped in deception and secrecy? These are the questions that this book seeks to explore, combining meticulous research, expert analyses, and an investigative narrative that reads like a thriller. This book reconstructs the sequence of events leading to the disappearance of MH370, examines the leading theories, and unravels the hidden truths buried within this perplexing case. This is not just a story about a lost plane. It is about the search for truth in an age of uncertainty, the resilience of those left behind, and the unsettling reality that, in the vastness of our modern world, something so massive can simply disappear. Through this journey, you will step into the shoes of investigators, aviation experts, and conspiracy theorists alike. You will be challenged to question what you believe, to analyze the facts, and to arrive at your own conclusions. Because in the case of MH370, the truth may not be what we have been led to believe. So, fasten your seatbelt and prepare for an exploration of one of the greatest mysteries of our time. The flight into the unknown begins now. 1. Vanishing without a trace. March 8, 2014 began like any other day for Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370. The aircraft, a well-maintained Boeing 777-200 stood gleaming under the airport lights at Kuala Lumpur International Airport, preparing for its scheduled departure to Beijing, China. The passengers, a mix of businessmen, tourists, and families, boarded the plane, unaware that they were about to become part of one of the most enigmatic events in aviation history. At precisely 12:41 a.m. local time, MH370 took off. Everything seemed routine. Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah, a seasoned pilot with over 0 flight hours, and his first officer, Farik Abdul Hamid, made their initial communications with air traffic control. The aircraft climbed steadily, its course set towards the Chinese capital. For the next 38 minutes, everything followed standard procedure. Then, at 1:19 a.m., as the plane approached the edge of Malaysian airspace, the first anomaly occurred. Captain Zeri's voice was heard over the radio, delivering what would be the last known communication from the aircraft. "Good night, Malaysian 370. It was a standard handoff message, as control was set to transfer to Vietnamese airspace. But MH370 never checked in with Vietnam. At 1:21 a.m., MH370's transponder, the device that communicates the plane's location to ground radar, was suddenly turned off. The aircraft vanished from civilian radar screens, an occurrence that was neither accidental nor common. It suggested one of two possibilities. Either a catastrophic failure had disabled all electronic communications, or someone on board had intentionally switched it off. Military radar, however, painted a different story. It tracked the aircraft making an unexpected and sharp left turn, diverting from its original flight path. Instead of heading northeast toward Beijing, MH370 began flying westward, back across the Malaysian peninsula. It climbed and descended erratically, at one point reaching 45.0 feet higher than its normal cruising altitude before descending to 23.0 feet. These movements suggested manual control, but by whom? For the next hour, MH370 continued to fly over the Andaman Sea before finally disappearing completely from all tracking systems. The final satellite signal, or handshake, detected at 8:19 a.m., placed the plane somewhere in the southern Indian Ocean, one of the most remote and inhospitable places on Earth. From that moment, silence. No wreckage, no distress signals, no clear explanation. Flight MH370 had entered the realm of legend, becoming one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of the modern age. As the world scrambled for answers, theories began to emerge. Was this a case of pilot suicide? A hijacking gone wrong? Or was it something even more complex and sinister? The investigation that followed would uncover a labyrinth of secrets, conflicting reports, and clues that led to more dead ends than conclusions. But one thing was certain: MH370 had not simply disappeared. Somewhere, somehow, there was a truth waiting to be uncovered. And this was only the beginning. 2. The final moments. The timeline of MH370. To understand what happened to Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370, we must examine the sequence of events leading up to its disappearance. Every minute counted in the early hours of March 8, 2014. Here, we reconstruct the flight's timeline based on official data, radar logs, and satellite pings. 12:41 a.m. Takeoff from Kuala Lumpur International Airport, Malaysia Airlines. Flight MH370 departs from Kuala Lumpur, bound for Beijing. The Boeing 777-200ER is in optimal condition, and the crew follows standard flight procedures. There are 227 passengers and 12 crew members on board. 1:1 a.m. Cruising altitude. The aircraft reaches its assigned cruising altitude of 35.0 feet. Communication between the pilots and air traffic controllers proceeds as expected. The flight appears routine, with no indications of trouble. 1:19 a.m. Last voice communication. Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah radios Malaysian air traffic control, delivering what would be the final confirmed transmission from the cockpit. Good night, Malaysian 370. This message is standard protocol as the plane prepares to enter Vietnamese airspace. 1:21 a.m. Transponder signal lost. 2 minutes after the last communication, the aircraft's transponder is mysteriously turned off. This is a critical moment, as the transponder provides location and altitude data to air traffic controllers. With its transponder disabled, MH370 effectively disappears from civilian radar. 1:30 a.m. Military radar detects the plane turning west, while civilian radars lose track of MH370. Malaysian military radar detects the aircraft making an unexpected turn westward over the Malacca Strait. This deviation from the planned route is highly unusual and suggests human intervention. 2:22 a.m. Last radar contact. Over the Andaman Sea. Military radar tracks the plane for nearly an hour after its deviation, before it completely vanishes from radar screens near the Andaman Sea. This is the last recorded position based on traditional radar systems. 3:11 a.m. First satellite handshake. After disappearing from radar, the aircraft continues flying for hours. Satellite data from Inmarsat records a handshake signal from the aircraft's communication system, indicating that MH370 is still airborne. This signal provides no location data, only confirmation that the aircraft is operational. 3:41 a.m. Second satellite handshake. A second automated satellite handshake is recorded. This suggests that the plane is still flying, though its precise location remains unknown. 4:41 a.m. Third satellite handshake. Another satellite handshake occurs. At this point, search efforts are underway, but the world remains unaware that MH370 has strayed far off course. 5:41 a.m. Fourth satellite handshake. By now, the plane has been in the air for nearly 5 hours since its last confirmed radar detection. The satellite pings continue, indicating that the plane is still functional. 6:41 a.m. Fifth satellite handshake. Another automated handshake occurs, suggesting that MH370 is still aloft. However, its location remains a mystery. 7:41 a.m. Sixth satellite handshake. At this point, MH370 has been missing for over 6 hours. The search is intensifying, but without a clear idea of where the plane has gone, efforts remain scattered. 8:19 a.m. Final satellite handshake. The last known signal from MH370 is detected. This final ping suggests the aircraft was somewhere over the southern Indian Ocean. After this, silence. The plane disappears entirely, never to be seen again. 9:15 a.m. No further communication search teams attempt to establish contact, but there are no further responses from the aircraft. It is presumed that by this point, MH370 has run out of fuel and crashed into the ocean. The aftermath of the vanishing timeline. The timeline of flight MH370's disappearance is both unsettling and perplexing. How did a modern aircraft with advanced tracking technology manage to evade detection for hours? Why was the transponder deliberately disabled? Who, if anyone, was in control of the plane after it deviated from its flight path? As investigators scrambled to make sense of these anomalies, families of the passengers and crew were left in limbo, awaiting answers that would not come for years if at all. The next chapter delves into the individuals inside the cockpit, seeking to understand whether the pilots played a role in this enduring mystery. 3. Inside the cockpit. The pilots and crew. The man in command, Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah. Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah was an experienced and well-respected pilot with over 18 hours of flight time. Born in 1961, he had been with Malaysia Airlines since 1981, earning a reputation as a highly skilled and dedicated professional. Passionate about flying, Zahari even had a personal flight simulator at home where he reportedly spent hours refining his piloting skills. However, his background became the subject of intense scrutiny following the disappearance of MH370. Investigators examined his personal life, political affiliations, and mental state, searching for any clues that could suggest he played a role in the flight's vanishing. Some reports suggested he was experiencing personal difficulties, but there was no concrete evidence linking him to deliberate foul play. The first officer, Fariq Abdul Hamid. First officer, Fariq Abdul Hamid, at just 27 years old, was a relatively new but competent pilot. With around 2,800 hours of flight time, he was still in the early stages of his career, but he had successfully completed all necessary training. He was on one of his final flights, as part of his transition to operating the Boeing 777 independently. There was no indication of any prior behavioral issues or personal problems that would suggest he had any motive for diverting the flight. Unlike the captain, Fariq had less experience but was seen as professional and dedicated. The cabin crew, guardians of the flight. The remaining 10 crew members on board MH370 were responsible for ensuring passenger safety and maintaining order throughout the flight. They were well-trained professionals, most of whom had years of experience handling international flights. None of them had any known disciplinary issues, and their families reported nothing unusual before the departure. Examining the pilot suicide theory. One of the most controversial theories regarding MH370's disappearance is that Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah deliberately took the plane off course in an act of pilot suicide. Proponents of this theory point to the following factors: the deliberate turning off of communication systems, the unusual flight path changes, which seemed intentional, the lack of distress signals or emergency calls. A flight simulation on Zahari's personal setup that allegedly resembled MH370's final known trajectory. However, no conclusive evidence has ever confirmed this theory. Psychological profiles of Zahari did not indicate suicidal tendencies, and his family and friends strongly denied the possibility. Furthermore, no formal declaration has been made by Malaysian authorities that implicates Zahari or any of the crew members in a hijacking or suicidal act. Could there have been an intruder? Another possibility is that someone outside the cockpit gained access and took control of the aircraft. However, this scenario is highly unlikely due to stringent security measures in place on modern aircraft. The cockpit door of a Boeing 777 is reinforced and can only be opened from inside unless the correct access code is used. If there had been an attempted hijacking, standard procedure would have allowed the pilots to issue a distress call, yet none was received. Final communications and what they reveal. The last known communication from MH370 was the routine message from Captain Zahari. However, what happened after that remains a mystery. With the transponder disabled and radio silence maintained, it became impossible to determine exactly what was happening inside the cockpit. Unanswered questions. Why was there no emergency call if a crisis unfolded in the cockpit? If the captain or first officer were responsible, what was their motive? Could a third party have been involved in taking control of the plane? Was there a mechanical or electrical failure that incapacitated the crew? While many theories have surfaced, none have been proven beyond doubt. The actions of those inside the cockpit during those crucial final moments remain one of the greatest mysteries of the MH370 case. 4. Passengers on board. Who were they? When Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370 disappeared, it carried 227 passengers from 14 different nationalities, along with 12 crew members. Each of these individuals had their own story, their own destination, and their own reason for being on that flight. But as the search for answers intensified, so did the scrutiny of the passengers. A diverse group of travelers. The majority of the passengers on MH370 were Chinese nationals, with 153 individuals from China on board. Many were tourists or business travelers. The remaining passengers included citizens from Malaysia, Indonesia, Australia, India, France, the United States, and other countries. Among them were families, students, professionals, and retirees. Some were on their way home, while others were embarking on new journeys. Despite their differences, they all shared a tragic fate, high-profile passengers, and their possible links. One of the first theories to emerge in the aftermath of MH370's disappearance was the possibility that certain passengers were targeted. Among the passengers were Freescale Semiconductor employees. 20 employees from the Texas-based technology company Freescale Semiconductor were on board, including engineers and technical specialists. This sparked speculation that they may have been carrying sensitive technology or information. 2 passengers with stolen passports. 2 Iranian men, later identified as asylum seekers, were found to be traveling on stolen passports. While this raised concerns about possible terrorism, further investigations concluded they had no links to any terrorist organization. Despite initial speculation, authorities found no direct evidence that any of the passengers had suspicious backgrounds or were involved in criminal activities. The family's perspective. Who were these passengers? For the families of those on board, the disappearance of MH370 was more than just a global mystery. It was a deeply personal and painful loss. Parents, children, spouses, and friends were left with nothing but unanswered questions. Many struggled with a lack of closure, and some refused to give up hope, believing their loved ones might still be alive. Theories surrounding the passengers. A hijacking from within. Some theories suggest that one or more passengers may have taken control of the aircraft. However, there was no known history of violence or extremism among those on board. Corporate espionage? Given the presence of the Freescale Semiconductor employees, some theorists speculated whether the flight was deliberately targeted to prevent certain technological advancements from reaching the wrong hands. A passenger with a secret mission? Could there have been someone on board with knowledge or cargo that made MH370 a target. While intriguing, no solid evidence supports this idea. Conclusion: ordinary people caught in an extraordinary mystery. The passengers of MH370 were ordinary people on a routine flight. While early speculation focused on possible terrorist links or espionage, no conclusive evidence has ever emerged to suggest that any of the passengers played a role in the plane's disappearance. What remains is the heartbreak of the families who still seek answers, and the haunting reality that 227 souls vanished without a trace. 5. The last transmission. What was said at 1:19 a.m. on March 8, 2014. The last known words from Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370 were transmitted. "Good night, Malaysian 370. These words, spoken by either Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah or First Officer Fariq Abdul Hamid, seemed routine. They signified a standard handoff from Malaysian air traffic control to their Vietnamese counterparts as the aircraft left Malaysian airspace. However, this was the last time anyone heard from the aircraft. Moments later, at 1:21 a.m., MH370's transponder was switched off, and the plane vanished from civilian radar. What happened between that final transmission and the loss of communication remains a core part of the mystery. Analyzing the last words, who spoke? Initially, there was confusion over who delivered the final transmission. While some reports claimed it was Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah, others suggested it was First Officer Fariq Abdul Hamid. The Malaysian government later confirmed that the voice was likely Captain Zahari's, though this detail remains debated. The phrase itself, "Good night, Malaysian 370," was standard protocol, giving no indication of distress or an abnormal situation on board. There was no sign of panic, no emergency call, and no deviation from normal procedures in the pilot's tone. What was expected versus what happened under normal circumstances? Once the aircraft left Malaysian airspace, it was supposed to check in with Ho Chi Minh Air Traffic Control in Vietnam. This never happened. Instead, just 2 minutes after the final transmission, MH370 disappeared from civilian radar screens. This silence led to several possibilities. 1. A sudden catastrophic failure. If the aircraft had suffered an immediate and severe technical failure, it could have prevented any further communication. 2. A deliberate act. Someone inside the cockpit may have intentionally disabled communication equipment and taken control of the aircraft. 3. Hijacking or interference. A third party could have entered the cockpit and forcibly silenced the pilots. Why no Mayday call? One of the most baffling aspects of MH370's disappearance is that no distress signal was sent. In cases of mechanical failure or emergency situations, pilots are trained to send a Mayday call or use emergency codes. However, no such signal was received from MH370. Even in situations where pilots lose radio communication, they are trained to continue flying according to their planned route while attempting to re-establish contact. The fact that MH370 did not do this suggests an unusual situation, either one, where the pilots were incapacitated or where they had deliberately chosen not to communicate. Were there signs of trouble before the last transmission? In the hours leading up to the disappearance, there were no indications of mechanical issues, no reports of passenger disturbances, and no weather-related concerns. The flight was routine until the moment it wasn't. There are, however, some important details to consider. Military radar detected MH370 making an unexplained left turn after the transponder was turned off. This suggests the aircraft was under manual control at this point. The timing of the transponder shutdown, 1:21 a.m., was suspiciously close to the final transmission. This raised questions about whether the individual speaking at 1:19 a.m. was aware of what was about to happen. Theories about the final transmission. Scenario 1. A normal sign, off before an emergency. Some believe that whatever happened to MH370 occurred after the final transmission, meaning the pilot who spoke had no idea of what was to come. Scenario 2. A deceptive cover for a hijacking or pilot suicide. If the transponder was intentionally turned off just 2 minutes after the final message, was the pilot buying time before carrying out a planned deviation? Scenario 3. A forced silence. Could someone have entered the cockpit and forced the pilot to send a normal transmission before taking control of the aircraft? The mystery that remains. Despite extensive analysis, the final transmission of MH370 remains an enigma. There was no indication of stress, yet just 2 minutes later, the plane disappeared from civilian radar. Whether the words, "Goodnight Malaysian 370" were spoken with genuine normalcy or as part of a deliberate act of deception, we may never know. 6. The search begins, a race against time. As the world awoke to the news that Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370 had disappeared, a frantic search operation was set into motion. In the first hours, confusion and misinformation complicated efforts. But as the hours turned into days, it became clear that this was no ordinary aviation incident. The disappearance of an entire Boeing 777 without a trace defied logic, sparking one of the most extensive and expensive search missions in history. The first 24 hours, chaos and uncertainty. The first few hours after MH370 vanished were critical. When the flight failed to check in with Ho Chi Minh Air Traffic Control, Vietnam began its own inquiries. Initially, it was assumed that the plane had suffered a minor technical issue and would eventually re-establish contact. However, as the hours passed with no distress calls or radar confirmation, alarm bells started ringing. Malaysian authorities were slow to respond, and conflicting reports about the plane's last known location created confusion. Families waiting at Beijing Capital International Airport were left in the dark, unaware that their loved ones had vanished. Mobilizing the search teams by March 9, 2014, the search had expanded rapidly. An international effort was launched, involving dozens of countries, aircraft, ships, and satellites. At first, the search was concentrated in the South China Sea, assuming the plane had continued on its original flight path. Then, military radar data revealed something shocking. MH370 had deviated from its planned route, making an unexpected left turn over the Malay Peninsula and heading toward the Andaman Sea. This new revelation meant that crucial time had already been lost searching in the wrong area. Expanding the search. Indian Ocean Hypothesis. As further investigations uncovered satellite data from Inmarsat, analysts identified a possible flight path extending into the southern Indian Ocean. The revelation came after examining automated satellite handshakes from MH370, showing that the plane had continued flying for nearly 7 more hours after disappearing from radar. This discovery shifted search efforts to an area west of Australia, a vast and deep expanse of ocean. The Australian Transport Safety Bureau, ATSB, took the lead in coordinating the search efforts in collaboration with Malaysia and China. Challenges in the search operation. The search for MH370 was plagued by immense challenges. Remote and deep waters. The Indian Ocean is one of the least explored and most inhospitable regions on the planet, with depths exceeding 4.0 meters, 13.0 feet. Lack of immediate wreckage. Unlike other air disasters, where floating debris quickly confirms a crash site, MH370 left no immediate trace. Conflicting data. The varying reports and theories about what happened complicated the decision-making process, sometimes leading to wasted search efforts. Financial constraints. As the months passed, questions arose about how long governments could justify the growing costs of the search, which eventually surpassed 200 million. False leads and debris sightings. Over the first few months, multiple reports of debris sightings surfaced, fueling hope that wreckage from MH370 had been found. Satellite images showed potential debris fields, but each turned out to be unrelated to the aircraft. Search vessels combed the ocean floor, while aircraft scanned thousands of miles from above. But still, nothing definitive was found. The first real breakthrough wouldn't come until over a year later, when pieces of MH370's wing identified as a flaperon washed up on Reunion Island, located in the western Indian Ocean. This discovery, along with later debris, finds in Mozambique, Madagascar, and Tanzania, confirmed that the plane had indeed ended up in the ocean, but still provided no answers about why. Public and political pressure. As the search stretched into months and then years, frustration mounted. The families of the victims demanded transparency, accusing governments and Malaysia Airlines of withholding information. Some believed more could have been done in the early hours to locate MH370 before it vanished completely. Political tensions between Malaysia, China, and Australia also played a role in delays and inconsistencies in search efforts. Conspiracy theories began to spread, fueled by a lack of clear answers. A search unlike any other. Despite the unprecedented global effort, MH370 remained missing. Search teams relied on advanced sonar technology, underwater drones, and satellite tracking, yet the sheer size of the search zone and the unknown variables of the flight's final moments made finding the wreckage nearly impossible. By 2017, after 3 years of searching, the official search was called off. The governments of Malaysia, China, and Australia concluded that without new, credible evidence pointing to the exact crash location, further efforts were not feasible. A mission left incomplete. The search for MH370 stands as one of the greatest efforts in aviation history. Yet it ended in frustration and unanswered questions. While pieces of the aircraft have washed ashore, the main wreckage, including the cockpit and black boxes that could hold crucial data, remains missing. 7. In the deep. What lies beneath the Indian Ocean? The search for Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370 led investigators to one of the most remote and unexplored regions of the planet, the southern Indian Ocean. This vast body of water, stretching across thousands of miles, would become the focal point of an unprecedented underwater search effort. But what exactly makes this region so difficult to explore? And why has MH370 remained so elusive despite extensive efforts? The vastness and depth of the Indian Ocean. The Indian Ocean is the third largest ocean in the world, covering about 27 million square miles. The area where MH370 is believed to have crashed lies in one of its most isolated and inhospitable parts, far from major landmasses and shipping routes. This makes search operations logistically challenging, requiring sophisticated technology and significant financial resources. One of the greatest obstacles to finding MH370 is the ocean's depth. The suspected crash site is located in an area known as the Seventh Arc, where the ocean floor can plunge to depths exceeding 4.0 meters, 13.0 feet. At such depths, even the most advanced sonar systems struggle to scan and map the terrain effectively. The role of ocean currents in the search strong and unpredictable ocean currents further complicate search efforts. The South Indian Ocean current, combined with frequent cyclones and storm surges, makes it difficult to pinpoint where debris from MH370 may have drifted. When the first confirmed piece of MH370 wreckage, a flaperon, washed up on Reunion Island in 2015, scientists used ocean drift models to estimate where the main wreckage might be. However, these models are not always precise, as floating debris can be carried by currents in unpredictable ways over long periods. The ocean floor, a terrain unlike any other. Unlike the relatively smooth landscapes of the land, the seabed in the search area is filled with deep underwater mountains, canyons, and ridges. One of the most notable features in this region is the Broken Ridge, a massive underwater plateau with steep slopes and rugged terrain. Searching such an environment is like trying to find an object in the Grand Sanyuang Sept under thousands of meters of water and complete darkness. The terrain has posed serious challenges to underwater search vehicles, which rely on sonar and deep-sea mapping technology. Despite scanning over 120 square kilometers of ocean floor, the search teams face limitations due to the extreme conditions. Deep-sea search technology. How was MH370 searched for? To combat these challenges, the search for MH370 employed some of the most advanced deep-sea technology available. Side-scan sonar, used to create detailed images of the ocean floor by sending out sound waves and interpreting their reflections. Autonomous underwater vehicles, AUVs. These self-operating submarines scan the seabed in high resolution. Remotely operated vehicles, ROVs. These were deployed to investigate potential debris sites identified by sonar, towed deep water sonar systems. These were dragged across the ocean floor to detect any unnatural objects. Despite these efforts, no confirmed trace of the plane's fuselage or black boxes has ever been found. Theories on what might have happened underwater. Given the lack of physical evidence, experts have speculated on how MH370 might have ended up in the depths of the Indian Ocean, controlled glide, or freefall. Some theorists believe the aircraft may have glided for some distance before crashing, which could explain the lack of a widely scattered debris field. Deep sea burial. If the plane impacted the ocean at high speed, it may have fragmented into pieces small enough to sink rapidly, making detection extremely difficult. Buried in the seafloor. Over time, oceanic sediment could have covered parts of the wreckage, further hiding it from sonar detection. The search continues. Despite the official search being suspended in 2017, private companies and independent researchers have continued efforts to locate MH370. In 2018, Ocean Infinity, a marine robotics company, conducted a renewed search using advanced AUVs. Unfortunately, their efforts also came up empty-handed. However, with advancements in deep-sea mapping technology and increased interest in solving this mystery, there remains hope that the wreckage of MH370 may one day be found. Conclusion: a mystery hidden beneath the waves. The depths of the Indian Ocean have guarded their secrets well. MH370's final resting place remains undiscovered, despite years of advanced search efforts. The extreme conditions, vast search area, and unpredictable ocean dynamics have made this one of the most challenging recovery missions in history. Yet, the search is far from over. The loss of MH370 is not just an aviation mystery, it is a human tragedy that demands answers. Families of the victims, investigators, and aviation experts continue to push for further exploration, determined to uncover the truth that lies beneath the waves. 8. Theories and speculations. Mechanical failure or human intervention? The disappearance of MH370 has sparked numerous theories attempting to explain how a modern passenger jet could vanish without a trace. While some explanations focus on technical failures, others suggest deliberate human intervention. Here, we analyze the most debated theories, weighing the evidence behind each. Theory 1. Mechanical or structural failure. One of the earliest theories proposed was that a critical failure, either mechanical or structural, caused MH370 to crash. Potential causes include rapid decompression. If a breach in the fuselage led to sudden cabin depressurization, the crew and passengers could have lost consciousness due to hypoxia, lack of oxygen. This could explain why the plane continued flying on autopilot until it ran out of fuel. Electrical failure. A major electrical malfunction could have disabled communication systems, leaving the pilots unable to send distress signals. Fire on board. Some aviation experts believe a fire, perhaps from overheating batteries or an electrical short, forced the crew to take drastic action, but then incapacitated them before they could land. While mechanical failures are common in aviation, none of these scenarios fully explain why the plane's transponder was deliberately turned off, or why MH370 deviated significantly from its intended route. Theory 2. Pilot suicide. One of the most controversial theories suggests that Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah deliberately flew the plane to its doom. This theory is supported by intentional flight path. The plane's sharp turns and calculated deviations suggest a pilot in control rather than an uncontrolled descent due to failure. Simulator data. A flight simulation found on Zahari's home computer allegedly showed a similar route leading into the southern Indian Ocean. Lack of distress call. If an emergency occurred, the pilots would have been expected to communicate it. Their silence raises questions about whether they were incapacitated or in control of the situation. However, there is no concrete evidence proving Zahari's intent. His friends and colleagues insist he had no reason to commit such an act. Theory 3. Hijacking or terrorist attack. Some speculate that MH370 was hijacked, either by passengers or external forces. Possible scenarios include: a passenger overpowered the cockpit, Although cockpit security was high, a determined individual or group could have forced their way in. Terrorist organizations. Early suspicions fell on extremist groups, but no organization ever claimed responsibility, which is unusual for terror attacks. Remote hijacking. Some theorists believe the plane was taken over electronically by an unknown entity, preventing the pilots from controlling it. Despite these theories, there has been no concrete evidence of a hijacking or terrorist involvement. Theory 4. Government conspiracy or military intervention. Some believe that MH370 was intentionally brought down by a government or military force. This theory suggests accidental military shootdown. The plane may have strayed into restricted airspace and was mistakenly shot down by a military force with a subsequent cover-up. Secret landing. Some conspiracy theorists claim MH370 was diverted to a secret location, possibly for geopolitical reasons. Cargo of interest. Another speculation is that MH370 was carrying sensitive cargo that made it a target for interception. While intriguing, these theories lack tangible evidence and are often dismissed by investigators. Theory 5. Controlled ditching versus high-speed crash. Experts remain divided on how MH370 met its final fate. Controlled ditching. Some believe the pilot performed a controlled water landing to minimize debris, which would explain why so little wreckage was found. High-speed impact. Others argue the plane ran out of fuel and nosedived into the ocean at high speed, causing it to disintegrate upon impact. Without the black boxes, these scenarios remain speculative. Conclusion. No definitive answer. Each theory presents compelling arguments, yet none provide definitive proof. The mystery of MH370 persists, fueling endless debate and investigation. While some believe it was an accident, others are convinced human intervention played a role. 9. The conspiracy web. Government cover, ups and hidden agendas. The disappearance of MH370 has been the subject of numerous conspiracy theories, many of which suggest that governments, intelligence agencies, or secret organizations played a role in the event or in concealing the truth about what really happened. While official investigations have provided limited explanations, skepticism remains high. Theory 1. A military shootdown. One of the most widely discussed conspiracy theories is that MH370 was accidentally or deliberately shot down by a military force. This theory suggests the plane strayed into restricted airspace. Some claim that MH370 was mistakenly identified as a threat and shot down by a military force, such as the US, Chinese, or Malaysian military. The governments covered up the incident. If MH370 was shot down, a cover-up might have been initiated to avoid international backlash or legal consequences. The lack of debris suggests a military intervention. Some theorists argue that military forces could have retrieved most of the wreckage before it could be discovered by the public. However, there is no definitive evidence that a missile strike or aerial attack took place. Radar data did not indicate the presence of military aircraft near MH370 at the time of its disappearance. Theory 2. Hijacking and a secret landing. Another theory suggests that MH370 was hijacked and landed at a secret location rather than crashing into the ocean. Possible motivations include hostage situation or ransom. If a group wanted leverage against a government or corporation, they may have landed the aircraft in a remote location to keep the passengers as bargaining tools. Political defection. Some speculate that one of the pilots, crew members, or passengers could have rerouted the plane for political or personal reasons. Covert operation. Some theorists suggest intelligence agencies may have secretly diverted the aircraft for undisclosed reasons, possibly related to sensitive cargo or passengers. The problem with this theory is the absence of credible evidence supporting it. Satellite data indicates that the plane continued flying over the Indian Ocean, where no landmasses exist. Theory 3. The plane was hijacked remotely. A more advanced theory posits that MH370 was taken over remotely, possibly through cyber warfare or experimental technology. This theory suggests MH370's communication systems were disabled by an external entity. The aircraft was remotely guided away from its planned route. The motive could have been to test cyber hijacking capabilities or target a high-value individual on board. While remote hijacking remains a possibility in modern aviation, no official evidence has confirmed that MH370 was controlled in this way. Theory 4. The role of intelligence agencies. Some believe intelligence agencies had prior knowledge over involvement in the disappearance of MH370. This theory is fueled by suspicious passengers. Some theories suggest individuals on board were linked to intelligence operations or criminal organizations. Delayed response from governments. The Malaysian government faced criticism for its slow and inconsistent handling of the crisis. Lack of transparency. Some believe officials withheld critical information, including radar and satellite data, to avoid revealing classified military operations. No concrete proof of intelligence agency involvement has surfaced, but distrust remains high. Theory 5. Cargo of interest. Some theorists speculate that MH370 was carrying sensitive cargo that made it a target for interception. Possible explanations include classified military equipment. Could MH370 have been carrying cargo that certain nations wanted to keep out of the wrong hands? Biological or chemical material? Some conspiracy theorists suggest the plane might have been carrying hazardous or classified materials, making it necessary to divert or destroy the aircraft. Money or high-value items. There have been unverified claims that MH370 had large sums of cash or precious cargo on board. Conclusion. The endless speculation. The conspiracy theories surrounding MH370 highlight the frustrations of a world that demands answers. Whether it was a military mistake, a secret hijacking, or an intelligence operation gone wrong, speculation continues because the official story lacks closure. With no black boxes recovered and no confirmed wreckage beyond scattered debris, the mystery remains. Until undeniable evidence surfaces, theories of cover-ups and hidden agendas will persist. 10. The role of technology, black boxes and radar data. The disappearance of MH370 has raised serious questions about the role of technology in modern aviation. Despite advanced tracking systems, satellite monitoring, and black box recorders, the aircraft vanished without a clear explanation. The black boxes, the missing key to the mystery. Every commercial aircraft is equipped with two crucial flight recorders. Cockpit Voice Recorder, CVR, captures conversations between pilots, cockpit sounds, and any audible alarms. Flight Data Recorder, FDR, logs key flight parameters, including altitude, speed, heading, and system performance. The black boxes are designed to withstand extreme conditions, including high-impact crashes and deep-sea pressures. However, they emit locator beacons for only about 30 days after submersion, making recovery difficult in deep waters. With MH370, the black boxes have never been found, leaving investigators without definitive data on the plane's final moments. Why didn't satellites track MH370? Satellites routinely track aircraft via transponder signals. However, MH370's transponder was deliberately disabled at 1:21 a.m., meaning the aircraft stopped broadcasting its location. This made it invisible to civilian air traffic control. Despite this, the plane was still pinging satellites through an automatic system called the Aircraft Communications Addressing and Reporting System, ACARS. This allowed investigators to determine that the aircraft was still flying for several hours after vanishing from radar. The key issues were, ACARS does not provide precise location tracking, only confirming the aircraft's continued operation. There was no real-time global tracking system for commercial jets at the time. Governments and aviation authorities were slow to react to MH370's disappearance, losing valuable search time. Radar technology and its limitations. Military and civilian radar play crucial roles in tracking aircraft. However, MH370's flight exposed limitations in these systems. Civilian radar relies on transponders, which can be turned off, as was the case with MH370. Military radar can detect aircraft without transponders, but data is often classified, and governments may not always disclose what they know. Blind spots. Large areas over oceans are not covered by radar, meaning flights can disappear from tracking systems if communication is lost. Malaysian and Thai military radars detected an unidentified aircraft turning westward after MH370 disappeared from civilian radar, but this information was not immediately shared with search teams, delaying efforts to track the plane. Deep sea search technology. Why hasn't MH370 been found? Since 2014, advanced underwater search technology has been deployed to find MH370, including side-scan sonar, used to map the ocean floor, autonomous underwater vehicles, AUVs, sent into deep-sea regions to scan for wreckage, towed deep-water sonar, dragged across the seabed to detect possible aircraft debris. Despite covering over 120 square kilometers of the ocean floor, the search has failed to locate MH370's fuselage, or black boxes. Factors that hinder recovery include the deep and rugged terrain of the southern Indian Ocean, possible scattering of debris due to underwater currents, limited precision of initial satellite data, making the search zone enormous. Improvements in aviation tracking. After MH370's disappearance exposed weaknesses in global aviation tracking. Since then, the industry has implemented improvements. Real-time satellite tracking. New regulations require aircraft to report their positions more frequently. Longer-lasting black box pingers. Efforts are underway to extend battery life on locator beacons beyond 30 days. Space-based ADS-B tracking. A global satellite network now monitors flights over remote areas, reducing the risk of future disappearances. Automatic data streaming. Some airlines have adopted continuous streaming of key flight data to ground stations to prevent critical information loss. Conclusion. Technology's role in unraveling the mystery. Despite the sophistication of aviation technology, MH370 proved that gaps still exist in tracking and recovering lost aircraft. The failure to locate the black boxes has left many questions unanswered, but advancements in tracking systems, satellite monitoring, and underwater search technology may prevent similar mysteries in the future. 11. Clues and debris. What was found? One of the most crucial aspects of solving the MH370 mystery lies in the physical evidence wreckage that washed up on distant shores, pieces of the aircraft recovered over the years, and clues that hint at what may have happened. The first breakthrough. The flaperon on Reunion Island. For over a year after MH370 disappeared, there was no physical evidence to confirm the fate of the aircraft. That changed in July 2015, when a flaperona wing component was discovered on Reunion Island, a small French territory in the Indian Ocean. This discovery was significant for several reasons. It was the first confirmed piece of MH370 wreckage. Its barnacle growth suggested it had been floating in the ocean for an extended period. It provided strong evidence that the plane had crashed in the southern Indian Ocean, aligning with satellite data. Despite this breakthrough, the flaperon did not reveal how the aircraft crashed, whether it was a controlled ditching or a high-speed impact. Additional debris finds. Following the discovery of the flaperon, more pieces of debris began appearing in various locations along the western shores of the Indian Ocean, including Mozambique, Madagascar, Tanzania, South Africa, and Mauritius. Some of the key findings included wing fragments, confirmed to be from a Boeing 777, interior paneling, likely from the aircraft's cabin, engine cowling fragment, featuring a Rolls-Royce logo, suggesting a connection to MH370's engines, flooring and seat parts, further linking the debris to a commercial airliner. Each piece underwent forensic testing by aviation authorities, with many confirmed to belong to MH370. However, none provided conclusive proof of what caused the crash. What debris tells us about the crash? The condition of the wreckage has led to differing theories about how MH370 met its fate. 1. High-speed impact theory. Some experts argue that the jagged edges on certain debris suggest the plane hit the water at high velocity, disintegrating upon impact. 2. Controlled ditching theory. Others believe some debris, especially the flaperon, shows signs that the aircraft may have glided and landed on the ocean surface before sinking. 3. Fragmentation pattern. The way pieces have been scattered suggests strong ocean currents carried the debris over thousands of kilometers. What remains missing? Despite these findings, the main fuselage, cockpit, and black boxes remain missing. These components are critical for determining the exact cause of the crash, whether human intervention played a role. The final moments of the flight, the ongoing search for more evidence. While official searches were suspended in 2017, independent researchers and private companies have continued efforts to locate new debris. Ocean Infinity, a deep-sea exploration company, conducted another search in 2018, but failed to locate new wreckage. Some researchers argue that further debris will continue washing ashore in the years to come, gradually revealing more about MH370's final journey. Conclusion: clues, but no definitive answers. The discovery of wreckage confirmed MH370's fate in the Indian Ocean, but many questions remain. The location of the main wreckage, the cause of the crash, and the final moments of the flight are still unknown. Until more evidence is found, the mystery of MH370 remains unsolved. 12. The families left behind, a tragic aftermath. The disappearance of Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370 was not just an aviation mystery. It was a human tragedy that left behind families, friends, and loved ones desperate for answers. The emotional and psychological toll on those who lost someone aboard MH370 has been profound as they continue to seek truth, justice, and closure. The initial shock and uncertainty. In the hours following the disappearance, families gathered at airports in Kuala Lumpur and Beijing, expecting routine arrivals. Instead, they were met with confusion, misinformation, and an overwhelming sense of dread. For days, airline officials and government authorities provided little concrete information, leaving families to grapple with the possibility that their loved ones had vanished without explanation. Many clung to hope, believing that the aircraft had made an emergency landing somewhere remote. The agonizing wait for answers. As days turned into weeks, the lack of confirmed wreckage and conflicting reports deepened the anguish of those left behind. The initial search in the South China Sea was later deemed misplaced, and it took weeks before the search was redirected to the southern Indian Ocean. Each press conference and government briefing raised more questions than answers. Families were often the last to be informed of crucial updates, and many accused authorities of withholding key information. Protests and demands for transparency. Many families became outspoken in their frustration with Malaysia Airlines and government authorities. Protests were held in Beijing, demanding answers from the Malaysian government. Key complaints from families included mishandling of information. Authorities were accused of inconsistencies and delays in sharing updates. Lack of communication. Families felt ignored or misled by officials. Slow response in search efforts. Some believe the search was mismanaged, causing critical time to be lost. To this day, many families feel that they have not been given the full truth about what happened to MH370. The pain of living without closure. The lack of a definitive crash site or recovered bodies has left many unable to find closure. Psychologists have termed this form of grief as ambiguous loss, where the uncertainty of a loved one's fate prevents the grieving process from fully taking place. For some, birthdays, anniversaries, and holidays remain painful reminders of those lost. Many families have continued to keep their loved ones' belongings as they wait for answers. Compensation and legal battles. Malaysia Airlines offered compensation to the victims' families, but legal battles ensued over liability, insurance claims, and accountability. Some families rejected early settlements, arguing that accepting money would mean accepting an incomplete explanation for the disappearance. Several lawsuits were filed, particularly in the United States and China, where families accused the airline and Malaysian authorities of negligence. However, without a definitive cause of the crash, legal proceedings have been complicated. The family's role in keeping the search alive. Despite official search efforts being suspended, the voices of MH370 families have played a crucial role in pushing for continued investigations. Many have banded together forming organizations such as Voice 370, a support group that continues to demand transparency and renewed search efforts. Their advocacy led to the 2018 search by Ocean Infinity, a private exploration company that conducted another deep-sea search for MH370. Though unsuccessful, it renewed hope that new technology could one day locate the wreckage. Hope and the unfinished search for truth. Even after a decade, the families of MH370 passengers and crew refuse to give up. Some hold on to the belief that their loved ones may still be alive, while others focus on ensuring that no other families experience the same fate. The loss of MH370 is more than just an aviation tragedy. It is a deeply personal loss for the families who continue to seek justice and truth. Their relentless pursuit of answers serves as a reminder that this mystery is not just about a missing plane, but about the lives that were lost and the people who are still waiting for closure. Conclusion: a grief that never ends. The disappearance of MH370 has left an indelible mark on the families of the victims. Their grief, compounded by the lack of closure, has turned into a fight for the truth. Chapter 13: Global Aviation Safety. Lessons learned from MH370. The disappearance of MH370 exposed significant gaps in aviation safety, communication, and search and rescue procedures. As one of the most baffling and tragic events in modern aviation history, it forced the industry to confront weaknesses and implement new measures to prevent similar incidents. Improved aircraft tracking and real-time communication. One of the most glaring issues MH370 revealed was the lack of continuous aircraft tracking over remote areas. Before its disappearance, commercial aircraft relied primarily on radar coverage and periodic position reports via ACARS, Aircraft Communications, Addressing and Reporting System. However, these systems were not designed for real-time global tracking. Changes implemented: real-time flight tracking, ADS-B satellite technology. Airlines are now required to implement satellite-based tracking systems that transmit aircraft positions every 15 minutes, or every minute in emergency situations. Global Aeronautical Distress and Safety System, GADS, a new initiative by the International Civil Aviation Organization, ICAO, to ensure real-time tracking of aircraft across all regions. Automatic flight data streaming. Some airlines have adopted a system where key flight parameters are continuously sent to ground stations to avoid total data loss in case of an emergency. Enhanced black box technology. The failure to recover MH370's black boxes highlighted the need for improvements in flight recorders. Traditional black boxes have limited battery life for their locator beacons and must be physically recovered to analyze data. Upgrades after MH370. Extended battery life for locator beacons. Black box pingers now last for up to 90 days compared to the previous 30-day limit. Deployable black boxes. Some aircraft manufacturers have tested black boxes that automatically detach and float to the surface upon impact in water crashes. Cloud-based data storage. Proposals have been made for real-time cockpit voice and flight data streaming to cloud storage, reducing dependency on physical recorders. Stronger international cooperation in search protocols. MH370's search operation involved multiple countries but faced challenges in coordination, data sharing, and decision-making. This highlighted the need for a more structured approach to international search and rescue missions. Changes in search operations. Standardized crisis response. ICAO has established new guidelines to ensure better coordination between governments, military agencies, and airline companies in emergencies. Improved radar data sharing. Military and civilian air traffic controllers are encouraged to collaborate more closely in tracking aircraft beyond commercial radar coverage. Greater transparency in search efforts. Governments are now required to disclose relevant satellite and radar data more quickly in the event of an aviation crisis. Stricter security measures in cockpits. The possibility of deliberate pilot action in MH370's disappearance raised concerns about cockpit security after the Germanwings Flight 9525 crash in 2015, where the co-pilot locked the captain out of the cockpit before deliberately crashing the plane. Many airlines reviewed their security protocols, new cockpit safety measures. 2. Person cockpit rule. Some airlines now require 2 crew members in the cockpit at all times to prevent unauthorized lockouts. Mental health screening for pilots. Regular psychological assessments and monitoring for pilots have been introduced in many countries. Automatic cockpit lockout override. Proposals have been made for external override systems that could allow ground control to regain access in emergencies. Regulatory and industry changes. The aviation industry as a whole has taken several steps to ensure that the lessons from MH370 are not forgotten. Key reforms. Revised flight diversion protocols. Airlines must have clearer contingency plans for unexpected flight deviations. Improved passenger and cargo screening. Greater scrutiny of passengers and cargo manifests to detect anomalies. Expanded safety training for pilots and crew. Enhancements in emergency response training for airline personnel. Conclusion: a tragedy that sparked change. MH370 remains one of aviation's greatest mysteries, but its legacy has led to critical improvements in airline safety, aircraft tracking, and crisis management. While no safety measures can entirely eliminate the risks of flight, the changes implemented since MH370 have made commercial aviation safer and more resilient. 14. A never-ending investigation. Where we stand today. Despite multiple search efforts, advances in technology, and a decade of analysis, the fate of MH370 remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in modern aviation. The status of the official investigation. The official search for MH370 was led by Malaysia, Australia, and China. The initial search covered 120 square kilometers in the southern Indian Ocean, costing nearly $200 million, making it one of the most expensive search operations in history. Despite extensive efforts, no main wreckage or black boxes were ever recovered. In 2017, after 3 years of exhaustive searches, authorities declared that no further searches would be conducted without new credible evidence pointing to the aircraft's location. The 2018 Ocean Infinity Search. Following public pressure and advocacy from families of the victims, a new search was launched in 2018 by Ocean Infinity, a private deep-sea exploration company. Using advanced autonomous underwater vehicles, AUVs, they scoured 112 square kilometers of the ocean floor, hoping to locate new debris or wreckage. Unfortunately, despite their sophisticated technology, the search ended without results, leading to further frustration and disappointment. New theories and leads under consideration. Though the official investigation has concluded, independent researchers and aviation experts continue to propose new theories. Refined satellite data analysis. Some experts believe that improved analysis of Inmarsat satellite data could provide a more precise crash location. New drift modeling studies. Researchers continue to study ocean currents to predict where additional MH370 debris may wash ashore. Possible deep-sea anomalies. Some scientists claim that previous sonar searches may have missed key underwater locations due to the rough terrain of the ocean floor. In 2023, Ocean Infinity expressed renewed interest in conducting another search, citing advances in search technology and better data interpretation. The role of independent investigators and online communities. The disappearance of MH370 has inspired thousands of independent investigators, aviation analysts, and online forums dedicated to solving the mystery. Communities such as Reddit's MH370, the Airliner Accident Investigation Group, and private researchers have gathered and analyzed evidence, sometimes even challenging official reports. Some of their contributions include alternative flight path reconstructions, analysis of military radar data, evaluations of ocean debris discoveries, critiques of official government responses. While these groups have not produced definitive answers, they continue to push for renewed search efforts. Could MH370 still be found? The search for MH370 is not entirely over. Aviation experts argue that as technology advances, new tools may eventually locate the wreckage. AI-driven sonar imaging, advanced submersibles, and better satellite tracking may one day provide the breakthrough needed. Conclusion: the mystery persists. MH370 remains an open case, with no clear resolution in sight. The lack of closure has left families in anguish, investigators frustrated, and the public fascinated by the sheer improbability of a modern airliner vanishing without a trace. Will we ever know the truth? The disappearance of Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370 is a chilling reminder of how, even in an era of advanced technology and global connectivity, a massive passenger aircraft can simply vanish without a definitive explanation. Over a decade has passed, yet the mystery remains unsolved. Families still wait for answers, investigators continue their work, and the world wonders, will we ever truly know what happened on March 8, 2014? The unanswered questions. Despite extensive searches, countless theories, and advances in technology, several critical questions remain unanswered. Why did MH370 deviate from its planned route? Who was in control of the aircraft in its final hours? Was it a mechanical failure, human intervention, or something else entirely? Where's the main wreckage, and will it ever be found? Each of these questions continues to fuel speculation, and without definitive proof, the truth remains elusive. The legacy of MH370. While the disappearance of MH370 is an unresolved tragedy, it has left a lasting impact on the aviation industry. Improvements in flight tracking ensure that no commercial aircraft can vanish in the same way again. Advancements in black box technology mean that future aircraft accidents will likely yield quicker answers. Greater transparency and collaboration between governments and search teams have been encouraged due to the challenges faced during the MH370 investigation. These improvements stand as a testament to the lessons learned from this aviation mystery, ensuring that the tragedy was not in vain. Hope for the future. While the official searches have ended, the possibility of a renewed investigation remains. Ocean Infinity, the private company that conducted the 2018 search, has expressed interest in launching another expedition if new data becomes available. Families, independent researchers, and aviation experts continue to push for a resolution. With ongoing advancements in deep-sea exploration and artificial intelligence, the discovery of MH370's wreckage may still be possible. The search is not only paused until better tools and new evidence emerge. A mystery that defines an era. MH370 is more than just a lost flight. It is a story of unanswered questions, relentless pursuit, and the fragility of human knowledge in the face of the unknown. The aircraft may still lie beneath the depths of the Indian Ocean, waiting to be found. Until that moment arrives, the world will continue to speculate, investigate, and hope for closure. Perhaps one day, MH370's secrets will be revealed, and the voices of those lost will finally be heard. Final note: to the families who lost loved ones, to the search teams who dedicated years of their lives, and to the investigators who continue to seek the truth, this video is dedicated to your unwavering resilience and the belief that no mystery should remain unsolved forever.